It is our pleasure to be joined by a man who is in his 42nd season as the voice of UTEP football. Jon Teicher is in the house. Jon, how we doing?
Gabe, I'm doing great. Good to be with you guys. Looking forward to getting down to Norman and opening the Sooner season.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hosting you. Let's jump right into it. Let's talk some UTEP offense first and foremost. Gavin Hardison, he's better than I want him to be. Jon, like the mobility, the arm strength. I like the risks he takes with the football. Can you maybe explain to us the number 2 jersey with Laufenberg on the back though?
Well, that all has to do with Luke Laufenberg, Babe's son, one of Babe's sons, who was a UTEP tight end, and 3 years ago tragically died from cancer. And as a tribute to Luke, who wore number 2 in his brief time with UTEP, it is awarded to one of UTEP's players, or has been awarded to one of UTEP's players each year since Luke passed away 3 years ago. And this year, Gavin's the guy.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. That's a great tribute there. And Gabe hit on it. You know, he takes some calculated risks with the football, but you know, just watching the North Texas game, I really love what I see from him, especially whenever they push the ball down the field. You'll see a lot of that hard play action and like some max protect 1 and 2 receiver routes. And, you know, they didn't complete all of them. They got some of them, but a lot of those deep balls were on the money. Yeah,
including the one touchdown that they did throw. They got in a one-on-one man situation on the score. It was a 4th down play, believe it or not, 4th and 1 from across the 20-yard line. And they wound up with a beautiful touchdown on a fade route. So, you know, Gavin's capable of making just about any throw at any particular time.
Tyron Smith, number 1, it's clear to me he's their number 1 weapon at wide receiver. Now, there's a couple of opportunities I know he wants back, you know, a couple costly drops in the North Texas game, but what have you seen from him? Because, man, he looks like he's got some serious speed, Jon.
Well, I think he's the top option right now. A year ago, he came in from the junior college ranks and was actually the number 3 option, but he and Gavin started to develop some chemistry the second half of last year. So what we saw in the North Texas game actually started developing in the second half of 2021. But, you know, he's a little guy. He's 5'7". But outstanding speed, can get behind a secondary, and I think Gavin's probably more comfortable with him than he is with any other receiver currently on the roster, most of whom are playing for the first time at UTEP.
Yeah, just to maybe back up a little bit for the listeners. Lay out the North Texas game a little bit, because I feel like everyone's going to be, you know, saying that I'm talking or we're talking up UTEP too much, because I really like what I've seen from them. But whenever you go back, you see the score, 31-13. That game was not that there was not that much of a separation there. Several opportunities missed by UTEP that they're probably not going to miss very often. So just kind of maybe overall impression of that game and how that separation happened there.
Well, Teddy, you said it, opportunity. North Texas converted on their opportunities, and UTEP unfortunately did not. Miners possessed the ball 11 times in that game, and only once did they not end a drive either at midfield or in North Texas territory in that game. The Miners were in the red zone 3 times and wound up with 2 field goals. So when you talk about 1 touchdown and 2 field goals total, and 10 opportunities on the opponent's side of midfield, obviously there were plenty of missed opportunities. So UTEP moved the football, had its chances, didn't score, but 13 points, and as a result, a first game loser to North Texas in a conference game.
And one of those was a 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, and they snapped the ball, next to the center's head. And obviously the Hardison almost converts that, still finds the football, scrambles out, and still makes a play, a competitive play where it at least gave him a chance. But, that's the type of opportunities that they missed.
Yeah, UTEP's first 2 possessions, they miss a field goal on their opening drive. Second drive is what you were talking about, Teddy. They have a 1st and goal at the 10, 4th and goal at the 1, and a bad center snap. And as a result, no points on 2 possessions. The first 2 possessions could have easily been 13-0, 14-0, and then they scored on their next possession. So it very easily could have been 17, 21-0 right away, and the entire complexion of that game changes.
So looking at the offensive line, clearly Dana Dimmel, a lot of experience, right? Being an O-line guy. And you look at Jeremiah Byers at the right tackle position, big dude at 6'4", 330. Elijah Klein there at right guard, all conference caliber player. How surprised were you that they struggled the way that they did to get movement and to get the run game going against North Texas?
Well, as optimistic as we are about those guys, Gabe, last year, the Miners struggled a bit, averaged less than 4 yards a carry on the season. So they struggled to run the ball consistently. Even a year ago, it's funny because the Miners in 2021 were one of the best teams in all of FBS converting on 4th down, and yet we're one of the poorest teams in FBS converting on 3rd down. So it's something that goes back a year, and obviously something that the coaching staff would like to fix. At times they run the football very effectively, but they just haven't been terribly consistent in doing so. And the North Texas opener was kind of a carryover from what we saw a year ago.
Yeah, I was listening to Coach Venables talk about the staff, and obviously has a history with Dana Dimmel and has a lot of respect for what he does. And you can kind of see Kansas State in what they do in kind of their philosophy. It's physical, hard-nosed football, a lot of 2 tights or fullback in there, some split zone stuff, like preaching physicality. And that's not easy to instill as a program, especially when you've got some recruiting, hardships and stuff. Like it's hard to get those type of guys in. But over his tenure there, it feels like the last couple of years they've really started to meet those goals.
Teddy, I think the biggest improvement that UTEP has made since Dana arrived here 5 years ago is on the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively. I think you look at the kids that UTEP has, it's a much better looking young man on both sides of the football, particularly on the line of scrimmage. But I don't think there's any question that Miners have made more improvement offensively and defensively up front since Dana got here than in any other spot.
Looking at the defensive side of things, John, a really experienced front 7. The Miners have a lot of guys that played a lot of football, but how did you feel they held up at the point of attack against North Texas?
Again, a little bit inconsistent. It wasn't a complete bust, but certainly North Texas had some bursts. I thought that Mean Green did a good job with their run pass option offense, keeping the Miners a bit on their heels. You talk about that front 7, but in the back 5, the Miners have 3 new starters, including 2 corners who the other night were playing their very first game at the FBS level. So a little inconsistency there. I think UTEP's going to be okay defensively. Again, if there's one area that I could point to where the Miners have made more improvement over the last 2-3 years, I would say it would be on their defensive front, and by and large have done a much better job holding up against the opponent's running game than was the case when Dana first arrived at at UTEP. And those two guys in the middle, Keenan Stewart and Kelton Moss, both transfer players who are now in their third year at UTEP, have just made a tremendous difference in occupying blockers and allowing the linebackers and safeties to flow and make plays.
You think that's going to be the most critical part of the football game for UTEP is that defensive line against Oklahoma's offensive line? And I'm sure you've studied a little bit of Levy's offense and kind of how he goes about things. Excellent running the football. Like, that's probably got to be challenge number one right there.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. And generally speaking, I think for UTEP, its biggest concern overall would have to be the Sooners' team speed and UTEP's ability to contend and deal with that team speed. But certainly, Teddy, it's right. You're right. It absolutely starts up front on defense.
Now, not to disparage the young man or anything, but it was clear that North Texas tried to pick on Jerome Wilson there at inside backer. To me, as I watched the game, well, is there any update on Breon Hayward? That's a weird situation, right? Still trying to seek eligibility to get him on the field. Like, what's the latest on that?
Well, actually, it's in Breon's court because the NC2A turned down UTEP's petition to grant Hayward an extra year of eligibility this summer. So now, as I understand it, Breon has hired an attorney, and he and his attorney are going at the NC2A. So if it's going to happen, it's going to have to be a Breon Hayward inspired and led effort. In fairness to Jerome Wilson Jr., this is a young man that the UTEP coaches love, but he missed all of last season with a knee injury. So this was his first game in well over a year, and I think we've got to give him a little slack at this point.
So you expect him, like, it's going to be his job here for the at least near future and maybe extended future.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. What do you think most critical thing for UTEP in this football game? Now, we talked about the defensive line matchup, but just kind of like generally speaking about the football game, in order to win it, at least have it close down the stretch where you've got an opportunity to win it late. What do you think are some of the most critical things?
Well, certainly you can't turn it over. You can't do that. You can't play into the Sooners' hands in that regard. And Teddy, I think they've got to have some success offensively in moving the football, moving the chains. Hopefully, the ability to run the football, which is certainly going to be challenging, but just taking what the Sooners' defense can give will give you. You talked about the propensity of the Miners to want to go down the field in the passing game. I'm not sure that that's a philosophy that in this one can be employed with any degree of consistent success. They're going to have to possess the football a little bit, pick up as many first downs as they can, keep that Sooners offense off the field, and hope maybe they can score some points. That's the way I see it.
Well, John, we look forward to seeing you in Norman, man. Don't be a stranger there in the booth.
Well, it's always fun. This will be the fourth time I've done a game at Memorial Stadium over the years, and it's always fun in that environment. And certainly, I look forward to it again this weekend, guys. And we'll seek you out, and you certainly will know where to find me. So let's make sure to get together on Saturday.
All right, John. Thanks for the time, man.